Welcome back to the Matt Brown Show, guys. Welcome back to the land of baseball bats and baseballs and a live audience. Everybody, welcome Gift Lubele to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Gift, funnily enough, do you know what my name means? If I Googled this the other day, trying to find meaning in my life. Do you know what it means?
No.
Gift.
Matt?
Gift. Yeah.
Really?
Uh-huh.
No wonder we click. You know.
I know.
I was like,
just straight away. I mean, the moment I laid eyes on you. Which was funny because we actually, there was a funny thing, right? Where we met was at the UK High Commissioner's place for dinner. Why were you there?
So
Or how did you get the invite or the tap up? What was the network connection?
Right. So we applied for the UK British competition. We made it to the top 6. And I was coming back from Thailand that time. I couldn't go because I was just really exhausted. So I sent through my co-founder. And immediately when he got there, we pitched. We made it to the top 6, but we didn't make it to the final round. And after that, they were like, we're building an ecosystem of entrepreneurs, so we will be inviting you more to these things. And a week later, we got invited to the UK, the British Commissioner. And I mean, I've always known you because I follow your work online. So when I saw you, I was like, just keep it together. Just do not mess this up. Say normal stuff. And I went there, I was like, hi, normally. But yeah.
You did a fantastic job.
Thank you. So it was so hard. Just like the pressure.
And the way that you started the conversation there that night was amazing.
Appreciate it.
But yeah, like I think, so basically the premise there was that the UK has this massive, it's like £2 billion and crazy like that they want to put into the tech ecosystem of South Africa specifically. So we were all there having a yarn and a chat, sharing our views on tech. And that's kind of where I really got exposed to your story, which was really interesting, right? So, but I always do this, but take us back. So you're from a township locally here, right?
Right. Yeah. So I actually grew up in a village. I spent most of my days my youthful days in a village. And then I came to Tembisa when I was about 16. Bad age, hey?
So
Bad age
highly
to come to
influenced.
I'll tell you that.
How was it? Was it a good time for you?
No, it was just terrible. No, it was really fun. I was staying with my mother, and when I was in high school, I started my first business. My background is not so, interesting. We actually lived in a single rented room in Tembisa. And obviously when I graduated, my mom didn't have money to put me to school. So I knew that I had to do something. So when I was in grade 12, I started my business. This was 2015. And when I graduated, I took not a gap year, but like a business year. And throughout that year, I employed 6 interns from UJ, which was really interesting because they all had degrees and I didn't.
What was the business though?
So that time it was a company a company I founded called Gift Lubele. So essentially we made new products out of recycled materials. At the moment, we're making bags out of advertising billboard, waste billboard. You see it on the road when it expires. No one ever asks where it goes. And in actual fact, to recycle billboard takes a lot of money. So a lot of companies like GC Deco, which is a very big company, they have warehouses and warehouses filled with billboards that have expired and, they don't use it. So we take those and we make bags and they're really, really good because the quality is good. Anyways, after that year, I had enough to put myself to school. But the schools here in South Africa, I didn't really like them that much. So I applied to ALU in Mauritius and I got declined. And the third time I got accepted. And then I put myself to school through the business. I came back, which is not so long. We founded Gudoti. And
Good what?
Gudoti.
Gudoti. What does that mean?
So Gudoti is literally a Zulu word for trash. Like hashtag man are trash. You could just say man are kudoti, like in a nicer way. But so the reason we came with the organization is my co-founder Matthew. He's half American, half French. He lived in Cambodia for a very long time. He came to South Africa, to start a venture. And I met with him through a mutual friend. When we were sitting down together Thursday, we realized the synergies we have, and we started to start this business. And essentially, when we were discussing further about, the issue of recycling, we realized that the overlaying problem throughout, middle or lower or higher level is logistics. And that's why you see these guys on the road with
those trolleys.
With those trolleys.
We should give them another name, because were you on Carte Blanche?
No, I wasn't.
Weren't you?
No, I was not.
Because there was a guy, a similar kind of background, doing recycling something, and he was basically... So everyone knows these carts, right? The guys that are on the highways and on roads that they shouldn't be on, literally like putting their lives on the line to move recycled stuff, right? To get paid for it and stuff like that. And anyway, so the trolleys for these guys are like really, really important. Like if a wheel busts, it's like their livelihood goes out. So this business was all about giving them trolleys that were like more indestructible and more visible and stuff like that.
Branding also. I think they call them Machereza. And we actually we're in communication to work with those guys, because what the platform does essentially is it's a data enabled platform that, increases efficiency. How so? There's a lot of assets within the recycling industry, right? There's a lot of trucks. There's a lot of, guys within South Africa who are recycling, but the issue is people are working in silos, and there's no single sort of structure or platform that increases efficiency, which is what we're trying to do. So for an example, with Machereza, they have trolleys, but they would give the individual on the street a trolley, and they would walk around from house to house checking waste. What our platform does is it enables someone with waste to send through data. So you'd have an individual somewhere in Tembisa or wherever, they would send data through our platform. Our platform then aggregates the data, sorting it by waste type. Then it sends out sort of like a request to whoever is going to come and pick it up. And that increases efficiency, creating also like a route.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. So talk to me about logistics. Yeah. What's the issue there with logistics and recycling?
Yeah. So a couple of issues, right? So I think particularly logistics in recycling is done in a very, very ancient way. The recycling industry.
Ancient way?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Like old, traditional, how it started, it's still being used today.
It hasn't changed at all.
For the longest of time, right? So, and how it works is people have routes, whether there's waste on that route or not. People just take that route to get waste. That's problem number one. Number two, if you are having a single route and then you don't have waste on that route particularly, it means that one, you're wasting either fuel or energy and money. Secondly, I think another thing we've identified with regards to logistics in waste is the fact that there's a lot of people with trucks out there, but the trucks are not being used to their fullest capacity. Say you have a route, you go, you pick up waste, but your truck is half full. It means half of the space is not used for that particular time, but you spend or your costs are 100%. What we're trying to do is we're saying, listen, on your way, there's a lot of people that you pass who have waste, but you're not aware of this, right? Secondly, your truck needs to be full every single time you travel. You cannot move from point A to point B with a half empty truck, right? So, and that's what we're trying to sort of, solve. And you see this, I don't want to mention name, but you see this in a lot of governmental, parastatals or companies. They have a lot of assets. They have trucks or whatever coming to pick up waste. The last problem is where the waste gets to be dumped. It's not recycled. I mean, 90% of South Africa's
landfill,
waste,
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So,
which, by the way, we're running out of landfill space. Yeah. We don't actually have enough. I'll talk more about that in a sec, but carry on.
So, to just add on that, there's a huge emphasis to recycle, but I think there should also be a huge emphasis to where that waste actually goes. Again, what Kubito tries to do is it looks within a 10 kilometer or 20 kilometers radius to see the active recycling site. So your impact, your remate and all that. So when you go through, your route, you are able to see, I'm going to pick up waste from point A, B, C, and then I'm going to drop it off here because this is the closest, recycling center there is. And we are able to track down how much waste is being sort of taken out. So we could also, sort of hold people accountable of the waste that they collected.
That's fascinating. So you're like Uber for waste.
Oh my God, I tried not to say that, but yeah.
But that's what people understand, right?
Everyone is like, we are Uber for laughing. We are Uber for food. I'm like, guys, come on.
Hey, we're Uber for lead gen.
Yeah.
Just pay us lots of money. But it feel like when I visualize the route thing, I'm seeing you're going from A to B. You're looking at pickup points. It's similar, right? Whether you
100%.
prefer to be, spoken about, I suppose, like that or not. It's kind of like Uber is successful because it removed inefficiency within transport.
100%.
You're doing the same thing in trash, which is really interesting. So, why are you doing this though? I mean, what was the spark that was like, okay, because by the way, trash isn't exactly kiff to be messing around with, right? Tech is also bloody hard, and now you're putting the two hardest things together.
Yeah. Matt, when I was living in Tembisa, I had a chance to meet with the people who are doing recycling for a living. These are people who are only doing that, right? And they make little money, but they put in the most amount of hours. One of them was a lady that would come to our place almost every single day around 5 a.m. in the morning. And she would knock and ask permission to check your bin. Right. And she would come in, take out whatever she's taking out of that bin and leave. Every day she would do that. One time I got to speak to her and I wanted to essentially know why she's doing this, where she's taking the trash. And she told me something that really inspired me. She said through what she's doing, she's managed to put 2 kids to school. And I looked at this lady and I realized how much this means to people. And the actual fact in South Africa is a huge amount of people actually do this for a living. But it's an industry that's not recognized. It's an industry that is not professionalized. It's an industry that's
not regulated, not taxed.
And they're solving a real life problem. These are the guys who are doing the dirty work that no one wants to do. And coming back again on the data issue, a lot of these recycling companies can't have a unified data center about waste because no one is going directly to where waste is. People are trying to get the it's not granular. So the guys on the road, they go down, and we want to sort of harness the data that those guys have, because that's almost real time recycling data. So I think that really inspired me to really look forward to, understanding the recycling waste within South Africa. And, when you start having an interest in something, you start seeing it everywhere. Now when I walk around, I see some guy walking and I'm like, that's why I want to do this. I want to change that guy's life, or maybe not change his life, just enhance it.
It's a very interesting perspective, that, right? And so I think if you're looking for perspective on something, you have to change your environment. Like really change it. You can't be doing the same thing every day, all day, going to the same places, hanging with the same people, and expect that you're going to get a perspective shift. It doesn't happen. And I guess that's kind of what happened with you when you met this lady, and she was basically telling you, looking up, despite what the paradigm would ordinarily be, that this woman has actually put 2 kids through school. So there's a fundamental difference that can be made economically, and what you're doing really through this platform is enabling that. 100%. How do you, so with any platform, you got supply and demand. You got 2 audiences essentially. You need me to list my trash, and you need the dudes on the other side and the women on the other side to effectively go and recycle the stuff. What barriers do you currently have in terms of adopting a platform? Do these guys have smartphones? I'm assuming. Or are you running it through USSD, or how does it work?
Yeah, so I think it's fair for me. I should clarify the fact that we're not necessarily dealing. So at the moment, what we're doing is we're dealing with people just a step above your guys on the road. The reason for that is earlier this month we spoke to about 100 of these guys, and we realized that there's so many problems that these guys are currently facing. And our platform is not solving most of those problems, right? So, but then we asked, where do you take your waste? And some of these guys walk a very long distance to drop off their waste, but some of them also drop it at individual sort of buyback centers. And those are the guys that we're currently working with for several reasons. One, safety. Secondly, for scalability, right? So when we work with buyback centers within, even here in Randburg and in Joburg, there's individual guys who says, hey, if you have waste, come to us. We will give you cash on the spot. We don't want to be those guys. What we're saying is we're going to the guys with the cash and we're saying, when you have waste, just tell us how much waste you have and what type of waste it is. And then just relax. Then what we do is we are currently looking for independent truck drivers. And these are the guys that you find on the street when you're driving with like a H100 truck saying truck for hire, right? They need work. And at the same time, there's people who actually need that truck. And we're trying to essentially build a connection between these two guys. And Matthew and I have actually went around here in Randburg to sort of look for these trucks. And you'd be surprised how many of them are there, just on the road, parked in cities, right? So then what we would do is we would speak to them and we would say, hey, we would like to use your truck. We would pay you X amount of, amount, come pick it up. And they say, yeah. What we're doing at the moment is we are working with our first initial client. They're in Olifantsfontein, and there's several issues that we are facing. One of them is most of the buyback centers don't all have scales, and with the scales, without a scale, it means we wouldn't know how much waste they have. Right? And if they send us data and we find out that the data that they sent is incorrect, then we lose money. Because how we make money is we buy waste at a lower amount, given the fact that we come collect it to you, then we sell it at a higher amount, more like using waste as a commodity. But if the initial data sent to us is invalid, either way, if it's big or small, it's not going to help us.
So you're going to be buying some scales soon.
We see the plan, Matt, is to be the biggest recycling company without having any physical asset. And that's what we want to do. We do not want to have a recycling center or a truck or a scale or anything, because those things exist already. The issue is putting them together in a way that increases efficiency and revenue for everyone. Because another thing is these guys are currently being robbed, right? So
really, eh?
Yeah.
In what way are they being robbed?
So they're being paid way little money than what they should actually being than what they should be being paid. Recycling in South Africa, and I would just say South Africa, not other parts of the world, is more like a mafia business. You'd find that. So I've been planning to get like a tattoo of a lion, just to like scare them off. I hope it's gonna work. But you would find that there's the same amount of waste, the same type of waste, being traded at two different prices, depending on, where that person takes their waste. Particularly the guys on the ground. If you are the guy on the ground, then, they give you what they feel. Several of these guys have scales where you put your waste, you see how much it is, and then they give you money. But most of them don't. So when we have a scale on the ground and someone puts their waste there, we would have a guaranteed price to say, hey man, we will give you this amount, and you would know for a fact that your waste equals to this amount.
Is it your job to set that price though? I mean, how do you, because you'd have to aggregate across numerous different.
It's not our job. We get the price from the big recycling companies like your Impact. They on a daily basis give us price, because the waste prices fluctuates, depending on various factors like petrol. When petrol increases, the price of waste increases, and other various factors. So they give us prices on a daily basis. There is an average price, which is what we're currently sort of using. But when they would then give us a price, and then we would not change the price that we give to this guy. That's what we want to do, consistency. But we would benefit, I think, a bit different based on the price we get from the big recycling companies.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
So what's the response been like?
At the moment, we're having a single client that we are trying to do this thing with, and this next week actually we're doing our first fully operational test. We've done a simulation with this individual. We went to their site, and the response has been good. Our second client, however, has way more waste than we can handle at the moment, and that's really interesting. This is a client that has so many buildings in Joburg and Centurion and Midrand, and he's saying, guys, I'm struggling to get people to come pick up my waste. At the moment, I am calling people on my phone saying, hey man, listen, I have waste, can you come pick it up? And this guy has scales in each building, so he's definitely an ideal client to work with. But what we're trying to do with the person that we're working with now is sort of solid proof our operations, and then after take it to our second client, who's much bigger and more ready than the first client.
All right, cool, dude. I'll come back to that in a sec. Let's do quote of the day.
Oh my god!
So you wrote this bad boy up for us. Why don't you take us through it?
So it says, if you can dream it, you can make it. But you could say, if you can dream IT, you can make IT.
No one dreams about IT, bud.
The reason I say this is because I attended a session not so long ago, and one of the individuals working at Google said, software is eating up the world, right? And
Ben Horowitz.
Right. And the reason he said that was, I think I found it so true in the fact that there's nothing new that we could sort of do. You can't build a new car with like a, square wheel. I mean, maybe you can, but the issue that we have now, again, is efficiency. We need software, we need IT that increases that. There's so many things out there that exist. There's so many things out there that are currently not being used in the most efficient way. And IT solves that. IT could be, machine learning. It could be a simple, software. But IT has the potential to really solve real life issues. And the reason I wrote this quote is, again, if you can dream it, you can make it. With me, that I just had an idea at first, and it's very difficult to move from an idea to an actual business. But I mean, if you can really, really dream this, I think I'm so convinced that you can definitely make it.
Well, I think it's great that you've come as far as you have in a sector which is completely untapped, which is great. It's such a unique sort of African problem / story. And that was really a big deal why I got you on the show. But I want to talk to you about kind of like ecosystem inhibitors around what technology startup founders such as yourself kind of experience. And I can't remember what the question was exactly at the dinner. But you were recounting what your view was on that, and I'd like to actually double down on that now. So when you think about the ecosystem as a tech founder, what is like the biggest pain point? Even if is it policy, is it government, is it funding? Like what's stopping you from scaling up this thing aggressively?
I think for me, the biggest threat to entrepreneurial ecosystem, once again, I will be referring to South Africa and not globally or throughout the continent, is access to content.
What do you mean by content?
By that is there's always two different stories that are sending people to different directions, right? What I mean is, here's a huge corporate that wants to build an ecosystem for entrepreneurs, but they have the wrong content of what entrepreneurs are looking for, right? And here are entrepreneurs saying corporates aren't doing anything to help us, or big businesses aren't doing anything to help us, and they have a different, content to. So the bridge in between, I think that's the overlaying threat that I have discovered. I say this because I had an opportunity to work in corporate and work with corporate. And they are trying to do something, because entrepreneurship is the new boom, everyone wants to hop on it, and they're trying to build ecosystems, but none of those are being successful because, in my opinion, once again, what they are trying to put on the table is not what entrepreneurs are looking for. In different I think, levels. Particularly, I'm speaking to more township entrepreneurs and the likes.
Why? What are they putting on the table, and why is it not right?
I'll give you one example, and it's a geographical example. Everyone wants to build physical either offices or co-working spaces, right? But how many big companies are doing that in the townships?
Well, none.
Yeah. Let me tell you, Matt. So as a township entrepreneur, there come times where you don't even have money to take a taxi, right? And some people have to choose between taking a taxi and buying bread. Where if you do take a taxi, you go to these big, nice offices that big companies or big corporates have built in Sandton, but you starve the whole day because you don't have money, right? So those are some of the things that I'm saying that corporate needs to get right. If they really want to work with entrepreneurs, and if they really want to build ecosystems, then they should go to where these entrepreneurs are. And if you ask me, that would be the township. Because honestly, and again, this is my opinion, I don't think entrepreneurs who are living in Sandton and all that are gonna benefit as much as people within townships. Ecosystem needs to be built more in townships and villages, in places that really need these places. And that's just one example. Like I said, it's a geographical issue that I have found that each and every ecosystem misses out.
Do you know a guy called Max Lechaba? From Lechaba Creations, the Lechaba Foundation, township entrepreneur, he's got Lechaba Custom Rides, he's got like 5 or 6 businesses. So he also runs Kwali Chaba in Soweto, which is, you must have been there, right?
Yeah.
You have been there, right?
Yeah.
Have you been there? Okay. We actually all go there in a team building. Alexis, can you write that down? I'm taking you all to Kwali Chaba.
Oh, nice.
So I had a partnership with Entrepreneur Magazine. So they send me like all their front cover dudes, and Max was on the front cover. So when I heard his story, it was like just holy fucking shit. This guy should never have made it. He was from the township. Had no skills whatsoever, and he started making beads and putting them onto bracelets and necklaces and stuff like that. That's how he started. No skills, nothing, right? And proper poor. And then he got into, if you stick into anything long enough, eventually you'll win, right? And this is what he did. He just kept making these things, selling them on the side of the road. Eventually he got one lady, then a second lady, and a third lady. And then where the money really came from was choirs, gospel choirs, where they all wear different, like you wearing this particular shirt and it's got like that pattern.
Right.
So
everyone needs to wear it.
Exactly. Right. And so the gospel choirs all wear different things. And so that's where, and obviously there's loads of money there, and it's a massive market all through Africa. So he made tons of money there. Long story short, he got funded through the government, some Department of Trade and Industry, because he started exporting. And they promised him some astronomical figure, something like this was north of 10 bar.
Right.
And they were late by 18 months in paying it.
How do you call that late? That's like being early for the next year.
I know. Tell me about it. So he lost all his cash because he basically invested in these machines, right, which are very, very custom. It's like, it's hard to even use them unless you're a specialist. Right. And so he lost everything. Literally, he slept, and all of these very expensive machines got sold at a fraction of the cost, but no one could use them. So they were just lying around this township or what have you. Anyway, so he slept on a mattress for 6 months, right? While he, again, started selling beads. Literally, imagine having everything ripped away from you, and then you have to start again. It's hardcore. And then, long story short, he wound up buying back all these machines and rebuilt his business, and now he's obviously made a success of himself. Yeah. But that story, and I heard of it, I was like, wow, that's incredible. And I said to him when I met him for the first time, I said, do you think that other aspiring youngsters in townships know your story, or do they only know you from like Kwali Chaba in Soweto? And he said, no, they only know me from my businesses. Yeah. But that, as in like, you go to Kwali Chaba and Max Lechaba owns it, but they don't know anything else. So I did a live show there in Kwali Chaba in Soweto. to about 50 entrepreneurs. We had Mercedes-Benz there. We sent them to Vega for a branding and design workshop, etc. So at the end of it, the reason why I'm telling you all of this is because I think it is necessary, and I've done something in that space. And there is no brand activism there. Right. But I'll tell you what, when I've got in touch with the PR lady at Mercedes-Benz and I got in touch with Siobhan, the CEO of Vega, it was straight away. All they needed was the line of access for someone else to do it. Do you know what I mean?
And again, I would come back to what I was saying. There's no bridge, right? So corporates are sitting and saying, guys, we need to work with these guys. But how? Entrepreneurs in the township are saying, hey, dude, listen, these guys don't care about us, because if they do, Matt, when you do branding for an entrepreneur, and I grew because of these workshops that I got for free, you have no idea what you're doing to that individual. When you take a normal entrepreneur from a township and take them to a school like Vega for branding for that week or that day, man, the impact that you have on that individual is ridiculous. And you may not see it on that day, but on the long run, you will definitely see, because people are hungry there, right? People want to do this. There's no food on the table. I need to do something. And the smallest opportunities given to them, they really, really make sure that they benefit. But it's becoming very difficult if they need to move from the township all the way to Sandton just to get that. Yeah. And what you're doing is exactly what I'm saying. We need more of those. We need even a formal thing. This thing of once off, we go to the township for a weekend or for a day and we have a session there on some community wall, then we leave. It's not working. It's really, we need someone who's going to stay there. I mean, I'll give you an example. When I was in school, there was this facility called Fab Lab. And when I was in high school, it's a governmental institution. What they did was they put computers in there, they put 3D printings in there, and they made it available. You could just come, design something, and then, start selling it or whatever. And that's actually how I came with my first product, which didn't, work. But it was essentially a holding device. When you go buy grocery, you carry a lot of plastics, they hurt your hand. I designed this little thing that you put on your fingers, you carry with it, right? Through that little lab. And it's things like that should stay and they should thrive. And the aim of those things is not to turn an entrepreneur from, a poor individual to like a multi-millionaire, but is to change how they think, is to help them strategize better, is to expose them to opportunities that are necessarily not in the township, but elsewhere. And I think that's what's needed. Access, a bridge between, big, nice, fancy corporates to township where there's real problems.
Is our okay, so we're launching this thing. We have launched this thing today, actually, isn't it?
Congratulations!
Thanks. The Dreamers Dojo website, is it live? Is it live? 5 o'clock today. Okay, so but I'm interested in this because it came up in the show recently, and basically what it is, it's a entrepreneurship mindset development type thing, right? So it's about giving kids exposure, the youth of Africa exposure to entrepreneurial thinking and preparing them for relevance, right? And financial freedom and stuff like that, because the job incoming,
right,
makes sense, and it's only going to get worse. And obviously the broader narrative is around education being not built for entrepreneurship, whereas it really should be. There should be a way for kids at a very young age, from 11 upwards even, to be exposed to what you've been exposed to and what I've been exposed to. And so it's interesting because I raised the point around, if you're going to make a difference and you're, as an entrepreneur, even as a young guy like yourself, I don't care how old you are, if you've got a year's worth of experience, you've got experience. That's valuable. And when you've got 30 years experience and 40 years and 20 years, suddenly it starts to add up. So then I wanted to ask you, do you feel that the intervention itself should be based in the technology space? So as a tech founder, this is something you understand, and you're, in other words, how do you enable efficiencies in the recycling sector? Well, you have to be technology enabled. Right. Do you know what I mean? And then you've got Gigi Alcock, who wrote the book Cassionomics, and it's all about the informal trade. And what I said to him was, where's the best place for a corporate to put their money? Is it behind, we've got Singularity University and we're going to, get these kids from all around the country in teams of 4 and, math, science, engineering and business studies backgrounds to compete and solve a real African challenge. And that gets funded by a corporate and the thing goes to the real world. Like you, for instance.
Yeah.
Like if you had that idea and you went through this program, you would actually get funded and be able to scale this thing.
Yeah.
Is that the way to do it in your view? Or like you just said, exposure. So for specifically the township guy and girl, right? What's the best way to activate them?
Right.
Is it technology or is technology just a buzzword?
Right. So firstly, let's look at the township life. You have an individual who, and this is just me, there's no citation for this, but in my opinion, you have an individual who has a phone, right? A smartphone. And that is one, maybe out of 3. One, right? And within the guys who have smartphones, the guy who has data is again 1 out of 3, right? Not speaking about a laptop. Just putting that context first. When you as a corporate or whatever say, we have an online course that we want to give to township entrepreneurs, and it's going to help them with XYZ, do you think those are going to match? I don't think they are. And it's because a lot of corporate don't take time in understanding what's really happening in the township. I think what the problem really is design thinking. If a huge corporate were to send 100 guys in a huge township like Soweto for a week, they do absolutely nothing but data collect. Nothing. Go there, speak to them, chill with them, see what they do, take notes, and then come back. Oh, Matt, the result that is going to come from there is going to be ridiculous. Because they've sat with these guys, they know exactly how their lives are. When they design a solution, it's not something that's taking them out of their daily routine. It's something that complements their daily routine, which is what's needed. I, as an individual, had to go out of my sort of, township life so I get access into this. I mean, in so many instances when I was living in Tembisa, I would come to Sandton and I would be like, I only have 13 rands to go to Sandton. I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do to come back. I don't. I've went to huge conferences where I don't have food the whole day. I would go to the bathroom, drink water, put something on my mouth, go back. And that requires tenacity. It requires someone who's really brave. And not everyone within the township is going to do that. So let's not look at the gifts. Let's look at the majority of people who are not going to do that and look at how we can help them, right? So listen, IT is the future. Softwares are the future. Corporates definitely should use tech to empower township entrepreneurs. But at the same breath, I think it's very key that they understand exactly what it is that IT can do to township entrepreneurs.
And what it can't.
Right.
Right.
That is the most, Matt, you've said it. I think that's exactly the thing. Maybe that's what they should start with. I read somewhere where they said when you're an individual and you discover yourself, you start by not saying, this is who I am. You start by saying, this is who I am not. Right? But you don't know what you are yet, but you know what you are not. Right? So I am Matt. I am not a sushi guy. What are you?
I love sushi.
Okay. Right, so
how many times a week do I eat sushi?
Right.
Peace.
So so you start by saying I am not something, right? I'm Gift. I'm not a soccer guy.
I don't eat meat or whatever.
Well, you start by deducting things that you're not, until you're left with this part, right? You're not exactly sure what it is, but it's like 5 things, and it's much safer. What I think tends to happen is people turn to look at what these 5 things are without deducting all these things that they cannot do. And what happens is, in most cases, they pick the 5 things that they actually cannot do. Right? So maybe that's a campaign that corporates should do. A campaign of what corporates can't do to help entrepreneurs in the township. All the things that we cannot do to help township entrepreneurs, and they look at them and they list them down. And
That's fine.
The issue, or rather the aim behind that, would be to identify the things that they actually can do. Because if they know that, listen, we can't do this, so what can we do? I think it's going to be much easier. Again, it could be just some stupid idea.
What about what's your view on preparing them for the informal trade sector versus trying to prepare them for a world that they're not, which quite frankly you're saying, and I agree with you, is technology enabled, right? But they don't know tech. Do you know what I mean? Like you, even though we can leapfrog generations of technology in Africa and like developed economies which increment, even though that's also true, you can't, like, AI. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're not a technical brain, you can't do it.
Right.
And by the way, and I don't know, have you read that book, Cassonomics?
No.
I must give it to you somewhere in the studio. Yeah, but basically, the informal trade sector is as big as the formal sector. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah.
So it's like, is the opportunity then not to just prepare the aspiring youngster or entrepreneur to sell shoes? Or to make beads, or to sell clothing, or to sell things outside school tuck shops, or to open up a spaza, or some form of shebeen, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Is that not... What's the better path, right?
It's so difficult to answer such questions, Matt, because they're so big, and I can't give you one single boom answer for such a big thing.
But what would you say?
Right,
What's your view?
If I were to comment on that, I would think the only way, and this is again my personal view, the only way to take an informal sector from an informal sector to a more formal, quantified sector would be to complement its current process and not come up with something entirely new from that. Right? So if, like that guy, if he's selling beats on the street, when you want to empower him, and this is an assumption, you don't have to come and say, dude, stop selling beats, design a website, sell beats on the website. That it's just not going to work. Right. But what you have to do is say, hey, within the beats that you sell, how many people come here? This much? Okay, cool. List them down. Every single person that comes to you, write their details, their email, their whatever down. Start sending them newsletter. Right? It's the same process, but what you're doing is you're adding a complementary feature to what he's currently doing. Essentially, you're migrating him from his informal sector to a more formal sector, and not necessarily coming with a new...
You're not leapfrogging it, basically.
No. Right. So, and I think that's the trick. If we can complement I was in Kenya the other day. Some guy, I take out cash, and he's like, I don't have change. I'm like, you guys are such a big store. Why? He shows me the wall, and there's like a code written. And I'm like, what is this? He's saying M-Pesa has taken over Kenya. In fact, I think half of the entire economy of Kenya is now being transacted through M-Pesa. And I'm like, what made this so successful? It's the fact that it complemented every single, process within informal, where anyone has a smartphone. Everyone is able to use like a USSD code. And they use these little spaza shops where people go. It's not like a big M-Pesa building, fancy with a beautiful reception and water that has lemon and ice or whatever, It's something that's already there. It's the spaza shop that I go to buy bread, and I can put money in my M-Pesa account. It's the phone that I have, not the iPhone, right, with waterproof and wireless charging. It's that little weird phone that uses flash. And that's, I think, how we should really, really delve deep into the informal sector. And maybe we don't have to formalize it. Maybe we just have to quantify it. Because I think that's where value is. We don't really have to be like, well, let's move the informal to the formal. Restricted, put legislation. Maybe let's leave it as decentralized as it is and as complex, but let's get data from it. Let's know that this is how much the informal sector contributes to, XYZ or whatever.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. The other thing to say is that human beings are creatures of habit. So if you can just augment what they do anyway, especially in the tech space, like M-Pesa has done, a brilliant idea, and obviously you get adoption fast, right? The other thing I had a similar experience. I went to Eastern Cape, poorest province in Southern Africa, right? And we had done all this research for podcasting and media consumption. And at the time, we were trying to build a podcast-only business, and that failed, by the way, despite all the data we had, because it didn't augment behavior. People still stuck on the fucking radio. Yeah. We were verifying the data, right? So it was supported by radio and a whole bunch of, like 15,000 respondents. Right. It was like a thing, and it completely substantiated the viability of podcasting as a medium in terms of putting big corporate money behind. Right. Anyway, so there I am sitting in the Eastern Cape. I forget the township, LSM 4, okay, Living Standards Management Level 4. What a load of bullshit. Anyway, apparently that's important here for marketers. Anyway, so I'm standing there at a taxi rank. Yeah. And so, the guy, and it's early. It's like 6:30 in the morning.
You're taking the taxi?
Yeah?
You're taking the taxi?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm standing there at the taxi rank, and the exhibiting's getting set up, and you got the mamas on the side of the road, the gogos and that, like busy setting up there. Yeah. Like they're going to sell, like literally the informal trade is getting going, right? And they got there with their vet coke and what have you. Anyway, so there's a guy setting up a sunglasses stand. So I walk up to him, I'm looking, just curious, I'm curious in general. So I go looking at the glasses, and I'm like, this one looks good and whatever. So I put it on my face, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, that's quite nice. So then I turn to the guy and I say, how much are these glasses? And he goes, it's 300 Rand. I was like, 300 Rand? I was like, geez, that's a good price, eh? Yeah. He goes, yes, for you, absolutely, it's a great price. So then I turn around to my mate, and I'm like, dude, these glasses, you won't believe, they're only 300 Rand. So he looks at me, and he starts with this massive, confused, puzzled look, and he starts smiling. And he says, Matt, come here. So I'm like, what's going on? Yeah. So I walk, and he goes, he literally physically turns me around, and he points up at the sign, and it goes, sunglasses, 50 Rand. So, I was like,
it's a special offer for you.
Yeah. But my point there is it's about thinking entrepreneurially. Makes sense. Yeah. It's why charge 50 when you can charge 300? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's about, I hate the word, but the word hustle, and understanding that if you're thinking entrepreneurially, and by the way, if you are selling at a taxi rank, you're trying to make as much money as possible, and to not think, well, I was only told to ever stick to one price because that's what I'm trained to do, or that's what, some schooling system told me I needed to set my price at. Yeah. But entrepreneurial mindset, for me, is the key. It's the person, not everything else around that is also important, but it's how do you make decisions?
You see it everywhere, and I think that's the nice thing about township entrepreneurs. They're able, it's price discrimination, right? But I think it's also hustling, you know what I mean? They know that there's a market out there that is willing to pay for this. Because this is a story. Oh yeah, I got these from wherever, from this guy. You should meet him. And if there's people who are willing to pay for that, why not do it? But you barely, and that's another thing, you barely come to such things. So when the township entrepreneur sees that, oh my God, there's people here that are not from here, this is my time to shine and, get the most. But imagine if there were so many other people that went to this guy. He is hustling them. $350. But if they're willing to pay and know his story, imagine where that guy could be. So, and I've recently started seeing people go to Tembisa. A lot of people were going to Vilagazi. Every single person who's not from South Africa, they're like, let's go to Soweto, and Vilagazi is it. But I'm like, there's so many other townships in South Africa that need your guys' visitation. Much as it's about the money, it's also about you, the experience. And it's also about them getting to say, hey man, listen, I sold 3 of my glasses for $300 and people are buying it and they're not from here. Do you know that my glasses are worn by XYZ from, USA? So I'm going to charge you $100 from now on. From now on, They are not $50. They're now $100. Even the person who lives in Eastern Cape is now able to be like, you know what? These aren't local classes. You know, people that come here are like big people. So let me pay $100. Yeah.
I got a question for you. It came up on LinkedIn recently.
Yeah.
Said if a store owner, okay, is selling shovels for $10, okay, and then that night there's a massive snowstorm. Now he's charging $15. Is that ethically correct or ethically corrupt? I said, fucking else. You charge that $15, son. Supply and demand.
I think you should have went for like $20 and not 15, because that's what business is. You know, I think let's look at Uber. At some countries, Uber was illegal, wasn't it?
What, Q?
Yeah.
What do you want? Give Q a mic, please. This is the third mic.
No, man, back to the Uber thingy. You know what they do? How they shoot up their prices?
Surging.
Yeah, like the prices go like crazy, especially when the weather is like this.
Yeah.
When it's like at night and then you go into the townships. It's ridiculous. Like, yo, what's happening now? What happened to the prices earlier? Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's a great example, right?
Yeah,
so it's supply and demand. Like my belief is, and you know, and there was a whole bunch of debates, and someone like, you can't say it's supply and demand, Matt. And I was like, well, yes, I can, because that's the economics underpinning any price.
I think if we were to go with what's ethical and whatever, there wouldn't be entrepreneurs.
What do you mean by that?
I think if, you know, and I need to be very careful how I position this, but I think we need to aim to not destroying ethics, but disrupting them, right? And what I was saying with Uber is, you know, in some countries, it was not ethical for Uber to come and do the platform, but it grew so much, and Uber started strategizing on how they could fit their model in these big countries that they were saying, you know, we don't want Uber. And today Uber is there, right? So the issue of ethics, especially as an entrepreneur, I think plays a huge role once you're really big. Once you're really, really big, because now each unethical step that you take has a big ripple effect on a lot of people. But when you're starting out, Matt, there's a lot of things that you do that are not necessarily ethical, right? And sure, there is, you know, wrongness in there, but I think probably in most cases that's, you know, how you should do it. You know, if there is a demand and someone is saying, hey, listen, I don't care, it's 15 and that's that, you need it and you're gonna buy it.
Yeah, because you got to fund that other store. I mean, and that other shovel store's not going to open itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but we do need to be very careful, you know, as to what, I mean, just counter arguing what I just said. We need to be very, you know, careful as to what we do, especially again in the beginning stage, because especially today, the internet never forgets and people never forget. So if you do unethical things throughout, and that's how you are known, chances are when you grow, you know, people might say, hey man, this is where you started. And you might even get used to it. So there is a level of caution that we need to take into consideration.
I think it becomes a moral thing then. Can you stand behind that price point in 2 weeks' time when the sun's shining?
There we go.
And the customer comes back and says, oi, why is it now $10 and not $15?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now what do you do?
Yeah.
So if you're not prepared to pay the price in that sense, well, okay, fuck you, I'm not going to come buy from your store ever again.
Boom.
Do you know what I mean? Now you've lost a customer. In fact, you probably lost 10 because... Or in fact, if they have social media account, you've lost at least 250 potential clients because of word of mouth and the ability for that thing to spread.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
I'd still charge the $15 though. But you see, for me, it comes back down to the person again.
Yeah.
Are you the type of person that will do that or not?
I'm not. I am not the type of person to, I probably would... This is what I would probably do. I would probably even decrease it, so I sell more, and try to, assuming that my business model for umbrella or shovels is a volume-based model. The more I sell, the more my cost goes down. And if that's the case, definitely, it's snowing. Listen, my umbrellas were $10, now they're $8. Now, what happens is you're going to have a lot of people coming to buy umbrellas, right? And your profits go really high, and then your costs go low. I think the type of person to rather do that than increase the price, get 5, 7, 10 guys buying, but you still have shit ton of stock. And tomorrow people are saying, hey man, you ripped us off. What happened? It's now the snow is gone and I don't need like a $15 shovel, but where else if you could decrease it, then it all goes out. Then tomorrow you could just always put it back.
Depends where you are. Summer coming next week because you got to get rid of those shovels. I'm pivoting.
True that.
But just a couple more questions and then we'll wrap up. But if there was one piece of advice you would give to a township entrepreneur who in 6 months' time is going to stumble across this interview by virtue of something that you've said, and who knows what might happen, but they come across this interview and they're listening to us talk about ethics and township entrepreneurship and corporates and how there's a role to play and et cetera, et cetera. What's the one thing you want them to know?
You're not going to get, there's this saying in Zulu, and it's like a very townshipy saying. It says, "Uzithola kanjani uhleli ekhoneni." So it means, like, how are you going to get it if you're sitting at the corner, right? And I think it's about doing, man. It's about execution and not excuses, right? You need to, I didn't know that I was going to be here. And I don't think you knew from the get-go that, right, I am Matt Brown and this is my plan. And because that's not how things go. But at that moment, you decide to execute. And that's what is important. My advice to them is what I said, what you've, the great guests that you've had here, the things that they said, it becomes really, really useless if they don't do anything. Whether your, situation is really bad or it's really good, just do something. I think act. If you think about something, do it. If you fail, guess what? You have a story. Then you could sit here and be like, I had a business and it failed, you're like one of those. And if it succeeds, dude, good for you. Then you come here and say, my first business succeeded. But they need to start. They need to stop just thinking. They need to go out there and do it. Execution. I think that's my advice.
Yep. Yeah. Great stuff. I was listening to Tony Robbins' podcast this morning. You were saying the same thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I really, he's a killer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why do you do what you do? Why do you get out of bed in the morning?
Wow. Some days I know, some days I don't know. I've had a lot of entrepreneurs who are like, right, the first thing I do when I wake up is my daily routine. I don't think that's practical. I don't think you could do that. Someday you just wake up and you're like, oh shit, another day.
That was Trevor yesterday.
I don't want to do this. So a lot of people speak about routines and people speak about, meditation and all that. I do them, but not every day, right? But what I do, I think, is I really try to do anything at my absolute best. And I think what keeps me going is just realizing that one day this is all going to be a story and I might or might not be here, right? And I think that's what matters at the end of the day. One day I will wake up and what I'm doing now would just be a story, and I want it to be legendary, I want it to be like, yeah, that guy. That's it. It's not like, I want to change the world. If I do that in the process, that's good. But I think, but the only thing that we could really do is give it our best, which is what I try.
Well, I think you are changing the world, bro. I think you're underselling it. I think you really are. I think it's I look at the recycle fuck up in my house every day. And I'm like, why won't someone solve this? But it's not me. Yeah. Someone else must do it.
Right.
And you're that guy.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? I really think that, and like, so I mentioned it earlier. I didn't actually come back to it. So I'm going to just quickly come back to it in a sec. So my old man and I were going to start something called pyrofuels. It was a process where they do it for tires, where they break it down and they create diesel fuel out of it, but doing this for plastic waste. So I did a whole bunch of research into landfills in South Africa and more broadly around the world, and how like that whole space is so bad. It is so bad. And the solution, I don't care if you scale or not, or if you have one recycled client, or if you have 1,000, hopefully it's the bigger number, but it's needed. It's so needed. And I think when you throw something away in the trash, it's I don't care.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's never going to stop. Like with artificial intelligence technology, I think futuristic movies, like sci-fi movies, are misleading us. Like when like a futuristic movie, if you're watching a futuristic movie and there's like a guy with like Tesla and he's flying and he's not driving, I think they should show like a dirty bin somewhere, you know. That's more like a realistic view, because that's the future.
But I mean,
no matter where you go, waste is something that human beings will continue to do. We have a graph in our presentation that shows the amount of waste that it's going to grow in the next 10 years, and it's ridiculous, man. It's crazy because people are aware of the importance of recycling, but that is not reflecting in the figures. It's not reflecting in the figures. The more people are aware that, it's like there's a lot of assholes who are like, I'm just going to throw this on the street and just go, you know? I don't know how, but it's
someone else's problem, right?
Yeah, and it's never going to go away. That's I think that's what I'm trying to say. It's always going to be there. We can either halve it, but eradicating it, that's going to be...
Except the Singaporeans, they seem to have a great way to do that. Have you heard about that?
No, I haven't.
So they have zero waste, like nothing. So when it's created, it goes to a landfill on a lake. The water's clean, and then what they do is through some process or whatever, they literally compact it, compact, and then burn. And then you say, well, yeah, but what about the gases? Even the gases, it's like CO2. Like they've found a way, God bless them, to eradicate litter from. It's funny because you think, oh well, it's always going to be this way, but you don't really know. And the thing is, it's like you think, oh no, it's going to take the fucking singularity and AI to solve this problem. It's like, no, it's like if you look around the world, for most things it's been done somewhere. Schooling, education, Finland, Scandinavia, right, abolished the traditional education system, doing an entirely different thing. Anything that you're trying to solve has, to a lesser or larger extent, been done before. Do you know what I mean?
That's true. I think what I've come to realize, and when I speak about recycling, people are like, oh man, you should check out Rwanda. Oh, Kigali is amazing, which is true, right? But I read recently that they are good at taking waste, but they're not so good at recycling it. So they're good at taking off waste off the street, but where does it go? And what do they do with it, right? And I mean, I don't want to talk about USA. It's just so bad. The recycling rate there is something ridiculous, like 4%.
Eh?
Yeah. USA is ridiculous when it comes to recycling.
Seriously?
Yeah. Remember that USA was providing waste to China. And not so long ago, China was like, no, we're not going to take your trash. So keep it. And when they did that, it was just a mess.
Really?
So the issue of waste truly is, it probably might evolve. I doubt it's going to be like gone like the educational system in Finland. It's probably just going to be like, okay, but now we don't have plastic, but we have this, and what do we do with this? Throughout, even in the future, I guess. I hope this burning thing, works. And for me, I think the only time we're only going to be truly successful is if we upcycle, not burn and destroy, burn and convert. Burn, then do something new, not all gone. Because then, I think if we make bats from plastic or bats from things that people throw away, then it's a good model. Then we take trash, we turn it into new stuff. Trash, new stuff. Trash, new stuff. Then
that's a good one.
Yeah.
Gift Lubele, everyone.